Yeah, after 4 years, you think it'd be finished the boat, but I'm still changing things even now just to get just that slight little bit extra edge out of it. The latest is our new racing toilet. Anything the TP52 was all we've got to have. I don't think Olin Stevens, when he designed the boat in 1968, thought exactly how many things I could change to carbon, but I've managed to, and the boat's going really well.
So a racing toilet, is that a carbon fibre bucket?
No, it's actually had to be a toilet, but it is carbon fibre, yeah. And I've told the crew that this is the winning edge.
So GO stands for Grace O'Malley, and Grace O'Malley was a pirate on the west coast of Ireland in the 16th century, and she had a fleet of 100 men, and she was a real trailblazer. But the fact I also like about Grace O'Malley, she was a really smart businesswoman. She wasn't just out there pillaging, she was actually making pretty smart business deals with the UK. Sure, I started out my sporting career not in sailing, but in rowing, which is slightly different, no wind, calm water. So I rowed up until my late teens, and then I jumped ship into sailing, really. But I wanted more of a challenge, and reality is I wanted freedom. I wanted to sail around the world, I wanted the adventure, and I love all the different variables that come into sailing, from understanding weather, understanding navigation, your team and so forth, and that endurance part of the sport. It's the same thing in sailing. Not one single person is going to win the Sydney to Hobart. It's your crew. There's not a single skipper or owner that's going to get it across the line. It's everyone, and it's everyone working in unison.
So what we really looked at when we're putting this boat together was using the latest technology out of the TP52 Super Series that sails in North America and Europe, and really trying to get the latest technology of that boat and those designs, and we have the latest design available anywhere in the world, and then really making about 100 modifications to the boat so it actually is fit for purpose for sailing in the Rolex Sydney to Hobart race. I think it's no surprise that the east coast of Australia is one of the roughest places in the world that you can sail when you get the wind against the tide, and you need to make a lot of improvements to the boat in terms of the structure, but also the waterproofing, but trying to keep the underlying performance of the boat at that top level. So that's what we've tried to achieve, and we'll see whether we've been successful in achieving that in about 28 days' time. Yeah, I think we've tried to keep the technology right at the leading edge. We've got sort of the latest moulds and the rigs came from the boats the TP52 that we took to Hobart last year. So we're familiar with the sails and familiar with the mast, and we just put the mast in on Monday, and we're going to go sailing today for the first time with that mast, in the new hull. So we know sort of everything from above the deck we're familiar with. It's just the hull and all the equipment in the hull that we're trying to make sure that we're familiar with. There's no gremlins in the system, no leaking into the instruments, all those sorts of things that can be fine when you're on Sydney Harbour, but when you're halfway to Hobart and things get rough, then you've got to really just make sure that there's you're not losing systems, not breaking down, you can charge, and everything's working adequately. I got washed off the boat coming around Tasman Island. It was windy enough, and luckily the main sheet hand behind me stopped me from being basically washed off the helm. 5 or 10 minutes later, we were becalmed, and we stayed becalmed for essentially about 6 hours in Storm Bay. Probably got the best fleet of Cookson 50 and TP52s that are doing a major ocean race anywhere in the world. Got all the super maxis. You've obviously got boats, bigger and smaller than those categories, bigger and smaller than the TPs. So you don't know where the winner of this race is going to come from. So we'll see when the weather gods tell us what they're going to do. That'll give us some indication. But it's just an amazing race and an amazing challenge, and you need a lot of luck as well.
Look, it's definitely daunting, especially when you call me the skipper, because really me being called the skipper is an insult to all these people that actually know what they're doing. There's 16 pro sailors on the boat who'll actually be running the boat, and I'm more like a glorified passenger. But I think they put me down on as skipper for insurance reasons. No one else wanted to take the liability of it. the start of the year I had this plan where eventually I wanted to buy a Super Maxi and try and win the Sydney at Hobart. And I was really looking for a sort of sensible middle stage, like a TP52 or something like that. But one of the boat brokers sort of mentioned Perpetual Loyal to me, and once he sort of did that, I sort of, very hard for me to sort of not go that extra step. So I kind of did that a lot quicker than I would have thought. And it is obviously a fast learning curve to get there, but I think that with all these professional crew, what I'm really hoping is a guy like me doesn't actually have to do all that much in the race, because the crew will do it all for me, I hope.
Well, it was devastating for the crew for all the work and the effort that the whole team put into making the boat Hobart ready, and for the incident to have a breakage and a gear failure that we had causing the retirement was devastating. And yeah, well, that's sailing, unfortunately, and as everyone can contest to, you know, getting into the Derwent or any part of the race, you don't win until you get to the finishing line, and that's what we're going to try and do this year. And but as you know, the weather gods have got to be with you, and everything's got to be with you, the team, the whole thing. So it's a great challenge, and Dad really enjoyed the challenge, as does the team, and I do. So we're looking forward to the challenge again this year.
It obviously depends on the wind. Like, I think that boat's got potential to win if it's really windy, like it did last year. And I think that if that happens, we want to go very, very hard and fast and maximise our chance of doing that. I don't think we've really got any chance if it's light weather. We possibly have a chance of being first out the heads, which to me is almost as exciting as winning the race. So we'll be putting a fair bit of effort into that.
You're going for a hat-trick?
Yeah, a lot of the reason I like the boat is it won the last two first out the heads. So to me, that's sort of the start of the race is such a huge event. And for me, I've seen that on TV 1,000 times. I've got no idea what happens in the rest of the race.
You don't want to know.
That's only the first 6 minutes.